Hi, Steve Sosnick here with today's Interactive Brokers Midday Market Update for Thursday, May 7th, 2020. Another day, another rally. It's one of these that I'm not really quite sure where it took hold. I think just some general enthusiasm overnight. And really the key action has been coming outside of market hours. I'm not the first to acknowledge this. There was a story in the Journal recently about it. Some other firms actually did the original research to kind of prove it. At some level, this makes sense, right? I mean, there's more hours when we're not trading than when we are. Although I think what's going on now, I hate to use the word manipulation, but I'm going to use the word gaming instead. I think people are starting to game the action. Doesn't take much. I happened to be doing an interview with Bloomberg Radio in Asia last night around 9 o'clock U.S. Eastern Time U.S. And you can see the futures starting to tick higher. And after a lower opening in Asia and Australia, they started to move toward unchanged. And I attributed that more or less to just some bargain hunting after yesterday's sell-off. Well, NASDAQ didn't really sell off, but the S&Ps did. But NASDAQ is just going to have a mind of its own regardless because of what I'm going to call the Magnificent Seven stocks that I keep harping on that make up 50% of the NASDAQ market cap. There was some decent earnings results after the close. I think the market is really willing to forgive and forget in a lot of cases. Peloton's numbers were treated nicely. Peloton, of course, is a good stay-at-home play. They still don't make any money, mind you, but let's put that aside and just say that things look rosier for them. PayPal managed to miss, but said nice things about the coming quarter. I guess they're also a stay-at-home play. So they're doing well today. Twilio, which is another market darling, okay numbers. They withdrew their guidance, but they get a pass too. So the market's been very much of a forgiving mood. And so what I think is happening with this market in a forgiving mood, you're seeing people come in overnight when markets are thinner, and a lot of times game the market higher. They realize that if they can get a little positive momentum overnight, that carries into the U.S. opening. And that's probably a pretty good strategy for a lot of people. Not something I'm going to advocate, but what I will tell you is if you're trading here with Interactive Brokers, you have 24-hour access to the market. So I think if there are opportunities outside of regular market hours, you are ideally positioned to take advantage of them. I really don't advocate, if you're a U.S.-based investor, staying up all night to trade S&P futures, but recognize now that that's really becoming what the game is. Some group of some smart people have realized that this is a path you can take by, create a little momentum overnight, hope for a little positive story in the morning, because there really wasn't a huge positive story overnight that would get this higher. Yeah, oil moved up a little bit, but from one low level to another, the Saudis backing off production. That doesn't mean it's good for the oil companies. It just means that they're letting prices breathe after having put a lot of other producers into some real pain. There was maybe some positive good news out of Moderna with Anthony Fauci talking about a stage 2 for their vaccine. Ultimately, we all know a vaccine would be very good news for the markets, but we're still talking, if markets sort of discount 3 to 6 months out, we're talking about something that's happening 6 to 12 to 18 months out. It's good news, but not necessarily enough to shove up the futures that much overnight. But these are the kind of things. Markets are in a positive frame of mind because of all the liquidity coming in. I don't think it's actually because things are good. If you look at the employment numbers today, okay, they were over 3 million, so they were slightly worse than expected. And the spin became, well, they weren't as bad as last week. We have 33 million people in the U.S. filing for unemployment over the past month and a half. There are 330 million people in the country. That's 10% of the U.S. population out of work. We're going to find out more about that tomorrow when the jobs numbers come out. There's some differences in the calculations, which I really don't want to get into. I don't think it's that germane to what we're looking at. But these are the type of things that you have to keep in mind and say, okay, we're starting to get that enthusiasm to price things back to normal. NASDAQ actually was unchanged for the year at one point this morning at its highs. And I think what we're going to start to see going forward is we're going to have to start to resolve, is this money that's flowing into the market from world central banks going to just lift the markets and continue to do so? As of now, the path of least resistance seems to be up, especially overnight when there's very little resistance to be found. And then we tend to meander during the day in the U.S. We'll see where we meander today, whether that continues with some follow through, or whether the strategy really may have become overnight to follow the people who buy it and sell it first thing in the morning. I suspect that's what they're doing. But I'm not going to advocate that as a strategy because that's extraordinarily risky and really not fundamentally based in anything. Happy trading, everybody.